Good afternoon, or actually we're getting to the evening hour at 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Talk of the Town, our April version. Here we go. Tomorrow is May 1st. It's kind of hard to believe we're already into the getting into the summer months here before we know it. This month we're going to come to you and talk a little bit about some other different departments and what we do within the city. I've got Joel Hardy here. He is our head of external affairs. And I want to explain a little bit about his position and his job duties. It's almost duties as assigned. I know you do a lot of things other than what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk a little bit about the need for what you're doing for us, as well as talk a little bit about the legislative session. I know last month we talked about a few bills that are going through the House and the Senate in Austin right now. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening in Austin holistically and the loss of local control that's been going on. But before we do that, just kind of set this up a little bit. Most people know that we've got a couple of different school districts in town. Technically, we have 6. So as a mayor and as a city, we have many jurisdictions that we have to build relationships with and know what's going on and how do we deal with those. We're in 3 counties, Brazoria County, Harris County, and a small sliver in Fort Bend County. Nonetheless, we have residents that live in these various counties. We have 6 school districts, primarily Pearland and Alvin are the 2 largest, but we have Fort Bend ISD, Houston ISD, Clear Creek ISD, Pasadena ISD. And if we really want to get technical, there's a cul-de-sac on the far east end of town that we got about 3 homes that are in Friendswood ISD.
Exactly.
We don't count that one just because it's so small that we just don't count it against that. So we have school district representation that we have to build relationships with. We have 5 state representatives in our city. Again, Fort Bend County, Harris County have some of those, as well as our 2 main state reps that have the bulk of our community coming from Brazoria County. We have 2 state senators in our community. We have 3 congressional offices that come into our community. 2 main ones and then 1 small one because of Harris County and this eastern end of our city. So a lot of different agencies, a lot of different elected officials that we have to interface with, and then all the different departments from the GLO to FEMA to HUD and all of that. So Joel, if you will, explain, and so your job and you're tasked with head of external affairs, meaning you have relationships, you build relationships, you know, and you interface with all of these different agencies. So
yeah, absolutely.
Talk a little bit about how that's been going.
So first, let me say it's been a pleasure working closely with you over the last few years, starting in 2020 with your mayoral incumbency. And I've been doing this my whole career, so for almost 30 years now. Relationship building, working with organizations, community-based governments.
Right.
And started out doing a lot of coalition work in Georgia. I lived in Atlanta for 22 years, and migrated back home to Texas and found my way to Pearland, Texas as a budget analyst many years ago, working in finance, and really learned a lot about the organization and the bones of how it operates financially, if you will. But ultimately got the opportunity to work in city management, close to Mayor Reed, of course, and had that experience working closely with him and learning a lot about how the community was formed. Now I get this opportunity for you and I to, make that trek to Austin, weekly and engage in some of the advocacy work that we've been able to do. But as you stated, I mean, we've got a lot of tentacles out there. We're an entity that located in 3 counties, 3 very different counties.
Very different.
Population-wise and as far as the complexities. And the needs of the residents that live in those different counties.
And the politics is different in all of these as well.
Absolutely.
So that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, so we have to kind of ebb and flow and, migrate to, conducting ourselves accordingly when it comes to the issues at hand and what those residents in those areas represent. And I think that's, how we've kind of operated, forever. And now we've got a dedicated role that kind of helps us foster some of those specific relationship management ideals, and I'm just getting started in this work. But over the last 15 years, I've been able to amass some good relationships through our efforts to obtain grant funds and work with partners in collaboration, the Community Development Block Grant Program and things like that. So I think all of that has helped us position ourselves really well to be able to work for the resident in Pearland, the taxpayer, and advance our causes and protect the city. And that's kind of the way I think I've been taught to, prioritize what's important for the community. And I think that's how we've operated when it comes to our legislative agenda and the other things that we've got going on. So it's a great opportunity, I think, and I'm enjoying myself.
It's good.
Not every day because, like you say, we've got some tough things to contend with, and I know we'll talk about those tonight. But
one thing that's great in your job is every day is different.
Every day is different.
And every day can turn on a dime. Every day could be something new, could be something difficult to deal with. But then we turn our sights on, we're in the middle of a legislative session. Just to remind folks, the legislature doesn't meet all the time. They don't meet every year. They meet every other year. I think it's every odd year. They meet for 140 days. So that will end, I think it's June 2nd, with what they call sine die ending. Now, we don't know if they're be called back into special session and do all those kind of things. Special sessions are a lot more narrow focus on what they do, but right now, here we are in legislative session, and so, I mean, from your experience, how is this session going versus previous sessions?
So it's chock full of legislation, for one. So this is a record year. There were more than 9,100 bills introduced, and about 2,500 of them or so are focused on local issues, cities and counties. And so within the confines of that area, we've got a lot of work to do to stay on top of things that are introduced that challenge our local control, our ability to manage land use, our economics, economic development, the way our visiting families and entities that come here for the purpose of enjoying Pearland. So our Visitors Bureau efforts, the way we finance capital projects and work to make sure that the taxpayer is as least affected as possible by our maneuverings as far as how we manage those funds. All those things are at risk. And I think the unfortunate tone of today's legislature is almost literally an attack on localities and how we do business. So I think we're fighting that. We're doing a good job in doing so, but there's so much out there that it's very difficult to keep on task with all the things that are going on. So, but I think we've been successful in identifying a few things that are moving, that we've been able to interject with our subject matter expertise. How cities work, how do we operate when it comes to protecting our city's land use values and the values we have for how we conduct ourselves transparency-wise and accountability, spending, financing capital projects, and all those things. And I'm not sure that the entities and the individuals that are proposing these laws are really knowledgeable and in tune with how cities conduct themselves. And I think there needs to be more of that. So one of the things I think you and I talk about is, come to Pearland or come to one of these communities, sit with us and learn and understand how we mechanize this thing called city management, governance, and doing that might really help, defray some of the stuff that's out there that just doesn't make sense for us.
Yeah, and and I don't want to pretend that we do everything perfect either. I mean, we always want to strive to do better.
Sure.
When we look at things, look at priorities. What should we be doing? What should we not be doing? What should we be getting someone else to do? When we look at our budgets and we look at various things, and so most of the state laws that are really attacking cities, from my viewpoint and my vantage point, are not really aimed at us specifically, Pearland or Alvin or Sugar Land or folks like that. Typically, the legislature doesn't like something that the city of Houston is doing, or Austin or San Antonio or Dallas, or Fort Worth, the big five, is how they refer it. And so then
And
they
we just get caught up in
and then here they come with their bills, and then we get caught up in all of that. And so we end up, in some cases, we're able to bracket out, get out of those bills with what they call bracketing, by counties or cities of X size or above, and they bracket us out. But nonetheless, the overarching theory, though, is state legislature is just going to mandate and dictate what a city can and can't do.
Sure.
Home rule cities. And I think there needs to be a healthy give and take between the legislature and cities. But it goes back to most legislators, unless they have come up through a city council or a mayoral position and worked at the local level, they don't really understand
Sure.
how our finances work, how we work, the pressures that they have on us. Let's talk briefly, and I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of, say, House Bill 19. Here's a classic example on limiting debt. And most people who are listening to this would go, great, let's limit debt. Let's just completely take debt off the table, right? But let's talk about that, right? What that would do is it would shut down our capital improvement program. So voter approved items that we approved in 19 and in 23, under the current law that's being proposed, we couldn't move forward with voter approved deals. So let's talk about a fast growth city like Pearland. How could and we're not the only one, we're slowing our growth rate, but Manville, Iowa Colony, Alvin, you go around the Beltway, around the Houston metro area, and you have cities all over the area that are facing the same type of growth challenges that we did. And how do you put roads on the ground? How do you put water and sewer in place? How do you do fire stations, police stations, if you're either limiting or almost reducing debt to nothing?
Yeah, and we're playing catch up. So in those contexts, we are really trying to catch up with the growth in population.
Right.
And the services and facilities and infrastructure that needs to be in place. And it's up to us to be hard and fast as to how we do that, to make sure that there aren't big disparities when it comes to our residents and their needs, when it comes to transportation.
Yeah.
We want to prevent congestion. We want to make sure our roads are safe.
Right.
They've got the width and length, and they traverse through the community in a way that gets people to and from in an efficient manner. And I think the challenge is that there needs to be a recognition of what a fast growth city looks like.
Right.
And there's some specifications there that can easily tell you that, hey, a place like Pearland that's experienced an 8,000% growth rate since its inception in 1959, which puts us at the upper echelon of cities statewide and even across the nation.
Right.
When we did our demography work to kind of prepare for how we write up the response to some of these law proposals, and just looking at population growth in general, Pearland's up there with Frisco and some other cities. Iowa Colony, you mentioned, fast growth. Even though it's a low population right now, that community was not necessarily just prepared for this 17,000% growth that's occurred since 1960. So there's some big numbers.
Well, and
out
right
there.
now they're sitting at about 18,000 people. They'll be at 75,000 in 10 years.
Correct.
So
very much like we did through the
2000,
early 2000, 2010. They'll experience that same thing. And so to break it down in the bottom line figures, we need to be able to manage debt accordingly in a way that's in the best interest of the taxpayer, using the financing vehicles that present us with the opportunities to refinance, refund when necessary, and reduce the tax implication on the taxpayer.
Yeah, and House Bill 19 would limit that greatly, and it would really hinder us addressing growth pressures. It would also hinder us from taking, for example, we've been systematically taking some of our older neighborhoods with undersized infrastructure for drainage and those types of things. The streets are old, they're 50 years old, and they need to be replaced, and those types of things. And as an example, we just completed one Willowcrest. It was part of the 2019 bond
Correct.
program. And the construction cost alone was in the 12 or 13 million range. By the time you add, engineering and all the very facets there, you're talking about a $15 million job.
Those urgencies, exigencies that may not be as planned as we'd like for them to be, but that need to be dealt with a sense of urgency.
Right.
And your CEO, for example, is an easy way to do that, and you would not be able to do that under the auspices of House Bill 19.
Yeah, so
I think it's important for us to value the impact on communities that might need those kinds of guardrails.
Right.
But keeping those that use them well, use those tools responsibly, and need them to help challenge the fast growth that we're dealing with to be able to continue to do that.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't have a problem with the dialogue. It's when they say, thou shalt do this, because we know better.
Right.
And nobody wants any more debt than they have to. I understand that. We need to be responsible. We need to be prudent with the tools that are available. What we don't want to do is limit the tools. Any workman has a van full of tools. And every job that workman goes to doesn't use every tool on every job. But they have tools in their toolbox to use for special occasions.
And we use a diverse set of tools.
And
so we don't use that one tool to do everything. We're not going to use a screwdriver for something that's got a nut and a bolt attached to it. So,
so we've got to have these tools to do it. We talked last month. We talked at length about the tiny lot legislation as an example. We've so far been bracketed out of that. It's at 150 or more. So
you want to explain to the viewers what that
so
what that looks like?
Just what that bill would have done or will do. It's probably going to pass. But it's going to pass for cities of 150,000 or more, and it's going to be in counties of 300,000 or more. Which Brazoria County, all three counties that we're in, are going to be in that. So county or ETJ, they'll be able to do this. And so what the legislature basically did is we just want to take away all rules and regulations from cities, okay, and we're going to strip it down to bare anything. So they can go all the way down to a 1,400 square foot lot, not home. Lot, okay, with a 5-foot side yard setback, a front setback of 10 feet. I can't remember what the rear was, maybe 20. Something of that nature. So that means a 1,400 square foot lot, and the minimum is 20 foot wide. So that's a 20 by 70, 1,400, and then you could do 5 foot and 5 foot. So that leaves literally a 10-foot wide house to go on there. Now, do I think...
so if you have a driveway, and you park your car in the driveway, you're going to be blocking the sidewalk.
You're going to be blocking the sidewalk, you're going to be hanging out in the streets. And it goes further that we can't impose any other restrictions on something like this. We can't even impose a restriction that you got to have an enclosed garage. So now you're talking, these are just tiny lots, thrown in here. Now here's the deal. We're not against small lots. We're not against, if somebody came in with the right proposal to propose something, that's smaller, we would look at that and we would review that. We also want to make sure that it's something that is affordable, but it's going to be ongoing, have good curb appeal, have good sustainability for the homeowner that's there.
Our ability to
we want to make sure that
those communities
we want to make sure that the neighborhood that they're in is sustainable as well.
And we can provide fire protection.
Correct.
We can provide water, wastewater,
right,
and those things the same way we do everywhere else.
Yeah, and the issue with it wasn't tiny lots. It was the dictatorial, thou shalt do it this way, without any regard to what our community has asked for, what our community is wanting. Now, I put it out in social media, and without exception, the greatest number of people said the state doesn't need to be dictating this. Now, again, we have mechanisms if a developer wants to bring that into our community. We can walk through that and make suggestions and come up with a scenario to do that. Home affordability is an issue in our country. But what this law does is it basically is saying we want to take a 2,000 square foot house on a 5,000 square foot lot, cut it in half, 2,500 and 1,000 square foot home, and call it affordable. At the same time, we've seen videos of of homes and subdivisions like this that are being built in our state, in San Antonio, in the Dallas area. So I'm not sure why they're proposing the law, because developers are already doing this. But having said that, some of these, I mean, you're talking $130,000 for a home that's 600 square feet. So where's the affordability in that? I get it. It's basic. A roof overhead, right? I mean, I get that, and we have a need for that, and we should be wanting, you know, those types of things. But is that truly affordable at $250 or $270 a square foot?
Absolutely.
So we when we really do this, I think sometimes the legislature does things, I think with the right heart in mind. I think they do, but they don't have the expertise to then say, how does this affect, and what's this going to be like in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years?
Sure.
And you know, that's one that's dictating to us.
So I point to the conversations we've had that allude to us needing to do our part when it comes to, you know, helping to challenge and deal with the housing shortage statewide. And I would say we've done our part. And I think that communities like ours that are fast growing again have accommodated that growth locally, but that otherwise exists in other places. And there's plenty of room for some of those other communities to deal with that, and we've already contributed, I believe, to the
and one thing here locally
to the solution.
Yeah, to get a lower house price,
and in advance of any laws. Requiring us to do so. So I believe we
were there.
We've covered that.
But in addition to that, that particular law would not lower. Even if we didn't have that, and we want smaller lots, the biggest hindrance to getting the cost down is land price. We don't dictate land prices. The market dictates land price. And if somebody wants to sell their property to a developer and the developer agrees to it, that is a market transaction that we don't say. Now, we're at a maturity rate in our city right now that even a 40 or a 45 foot lot is going to render, you know, a $300,000+ home, and that's because of the dirt price.
Sure.
And just the development cost. They would still have to put in curb and gutter streets. They would still have all those kind of things. You can amortize that or spread that over more lots to drive it down. But, and I know we got a little wonkish on this, but the law itself is not going to address certain things like rising cost of labor, rising cost of construction costs, doesn't address higher interest rates at the federal level. We don't dictate those, and neither does the state, but those are some of the factors that's causing affordability to get out of reach. And this bill doesn't do it.
Propagation for our AMI, you know, based water management system. I mean, do we have the capability technologically to deal with that level of density when it comes to some of the, you know, cellular capabilities and managing that? It's very different from how we have studied our entire community and provided services there. So little nuances that sometimes people don't think about that are costly for us.
Well, even on the multifamily side, Senate Bill 840, again, we're currently bracketed out of that legislation at 150,000 plus.
But we'll be there soon.
But we'll be there. We'll be there very soon. And what that allows is the legislature basically coming in and say, Pearland, we understand you have zoning, and we understand that you have classifications for multifamily and those types of things, but we don't care. Any non-residential use property, anything that's in the commercial, general business, you know, those types of things, I think anything other than industrial, by right, a multifamily unit can locate there. Now, you're going to have people say, well, but you've approved some. Yep, on very specific pieces of property with very special exceptions to it. We turn away developers weekly. Our own staff interfaces with those and say, no, we won't support that, or we won't support that. And our council has actually said no to several developers who want to do multifamily. We've said yes to several because there are specific types of uses in specific types of areas. And so, but that gives us at the local level the opportunity to do that. This law change would be dictatorial. Thou shalt allow it, period. without a say-so from us. And worse, if we have an area that we're going to rezone a piece of property, the area around it gets notified. They do have the right to speak out on it. Under this scenario, none of that happens.
They don't, correct. Yeah.
And I'm being told by our development folks that if that were to pass and we were in the bill right now, we would have 10 applications the next day for multifamily.
So it ostensibly takes our zoning capability away from us, and I think we've prided ourselves on that, and that's what the Pearland voters chose at some point in the iteration of our growth and development, and I think that needs to be respected.
And even on those, zoning and everything else, and some of the cases and development that's happened over the last 20 years, have we gotten it all right? No. We've probably made mistakes. I know we have. But that's for our local community to deal with and grapple with and debate about. We don't need someone in Austin saying, do it this way. That's where, so whether it's us or Panville or Iowa Colony, some of these other cities that are going to be fast growing and on this, they're going to lose the opportunity to shape their own city.
Sure.
For the future. So, but Joel, I appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I appreciate working closely with you
Yeah.
on these things. And I think, in the short period of time we've been officially doing this work, we've made some headway and want to continue in that direction. So, thank you for having me today.
Well, we've got some great folks in Austin that are doing and working with that we're able to go ahead and work with and go to the legislature and work for bills and get some amendments, put in. And that's one of those things of just having those relationships that we have on a daily basis to make sure that we're able to, call up a representative real quick. I've gotten calls from our reps. They're on the House floor. They've been in committee meetings, looking at things, asking how does this bill affect your city and those types of things. So it's real important that we do that. But we want to turn away from that. I want to thank y'all for indulging us to kind of go through that. That's a lot of work that kind of happens behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see on a daily basis. But we're going to turn to some of the questions that were turned in ahead of time. We'll certainly get into any questions that may pop up while we're on this. But I want to start with two questions that were left over from last month. I'm not sure if we were not able to get to them or not. But the first one is, I live in Country Place, and although we are gated, the city owns our streets. Why do we not have a police presence in our neighborhood? There are speeders up and down our streets. We are an over 55 community, but most are over 70. We'd like to feel protected too. So I guess my first retort to that is, we simply don't have enough officers to have an officer in every single subdivision in our community 24/7.
Yep.
That's just not doable. I don't have a police officer drive through my neighborhood every day. And so I understand that. So we do have patrols through and around the cities. I guarantee you there are patrols up and down McCard, there's up and down Country Place Boulevard. But having an officer dedicated for a particular neighborhood is just, that's not practical. And we couldn't, if we do it for one, we would have to do that across the city. We would have to have tenfold the number of officers.
And it would become cost prohibitive very quickly. I mean, it's
police-
already cost prohibitive.
The police department is our number one cost center
Yep.
in the city, with a budget around $40 million. So
And 170 sworn officers, I believe.
182 positions.
182.
We're currently down 3.
Yep.
So yeah.
But
So-
and I will say that to hopefully help give you peace of mind, one of the things that they use is a data-driven approach to crime statistics. So,
Right.
the department is they have data analysts, and they have a real-time crime center, and of course dispatch and things like that. So, they're looking at areas where crime is more prevalent, and they're focusing on those types of things. They have the area broken up into zones, and they have access to a wealth of information in real time. So they see a situation going on, They can deploy a drone to get closer eyes on it. They're leveraging a lot of different technologies to try to maximize the effectiveness of our police force. And if you look at the statistics overall, our crime and crash statistics, things like that, are pretty good in the community. What I would encourage any resident to do if they feel unsafe, if they have an issue, or if they experience somebody that's breaking the law, you should report it. If it's not an emergency at the time, call the PD non-emergency number to reserve dispatchers and 911 for emergencies that are happening at that moment. But if you call 281-997-4100, you can call PD non-emergency and report it that way. Those types of reports help drive that data-driven approach.
Yep. Number two, this is more of a statement. I'd like to make anything west of 288 another town and not Pearland. It's actually a pretty sad statement that I reject. We are one Pearland. We are a unified city. If you feel that way, I'm sorry that you feel that way, and I feel sad that we have people who actually make that statement public. Seesaw construction, okay, well, we could do that, and you would have to pay a massive lawsuit for takings. It's called regulatory takings. If somebody has the rights and permits to do that and we cease that construction, we would be sued. It would be in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And you complain about your tax bill now, you would run every single one of us out of office when we did that. That's the law. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. That's the law. You're asking me and council and the city staff to break the law. We're not going to do that, period. No more fake old Pearland behind Buc-ee's. Refurbish the actual old Pearland in Main Street. I'm not sure what that means. There are certain buildings there. Again, they're private property. And we try to do what we can for from a code enforcement standpoint, but other than that, it's private property. So like the old Ford's restaurant, 7U's, it's been vacant for 12, 13 years. That's private property.
There's only so much we can do there.
There's only so much we can do.
The Old Town Site Revitalization Plan that is trying to develop ideas, leveraging the community input, lots of different input, to find ways to create catalyst areas within the Old Town Site. And there are some really fascinating ideas that are, I'm optimistic are, possible. I mean, things we could really do. So I encourage you to pay attention to those things as well. The last point they made on there, we don't need to look impressive, and this goes for PISD as well. Again, very subjective.
So I'll just say noted, and we'll move on. You're fighting tiny homes. I don't know why this came in from last month. Maybe it came in
it
after
was
we were
after
over.
it was after.
Okay. You're fighting tiny homes. Why don't want middle class here? I think I've answered that question.
Why are you fighting tiny homes? Yeah, I think you satisfied.
I think we satisfied that. We're not fighting tiny homes, and we're not fighting the middle class. In fact, the majority of Pearland currently that live here are middle class, and people who are moving here are middle class folks. So
it's the difference between you shall, versus you can, right?
Versus having the city and your elected leadership to be in the middle of that and having having discussions with developers, having discussions with what's appropriate for our community. Again, my Facebook post that I put out a month ago spoke heavily to this, and I think the overwhelming 90+% of people sided with the view that we don't need the state dictating this.
Well, and I mean, you just go to our tagline. Years ago, council met for their strategic retreat and developed their strategic priorities, and then the community's tagline that we have now. And the tagline now is the community of choice. And yeah, it's 4 little words, but they're 4 words that
mean something.
It means something to the elected body that made them, and they're words that we talk about a lot. We want Pearland to be a community where people can make their own choices, where the choices are left at the local level, because we know the community better than the state does, better than anybody that is outside of the community. And so I think everybody takes that very seriously.
Right.
That's contributing to it.
Right.
Okay, so questions we have so far. It seems like we have a lot in animal shelter.
Yep.
We have some in bicycles, and then some in development. So I'll just start reading these out,
Okay.
and we'll kind of pass through them as you go.
If we have answers, we'll try to answer. If we don't, we'll certainly take these and get these answers back to people. We have subject matter experts, which I'm not, on some of these issues, and we'll certainly get these answers too if we don't know it.
So the first one: why is the Pearland Animal Shelter not open 7 days per week?
It's an easy answer, but it's a hard one to deliver. We simply don't have the personnel to keep it open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We don't have the volunteers to help either. So if this person is willing to come in and volunteer at the animal shelter, we'd be more than happy to take them in. I know our folks at Animal Control would love to hear from them, but in a quick answer, we don't have the personnel to do that.
Got it. When will the Pearland Animal Shelter? When the Pearland Animal Shelter is not accepting animals because it's at capacity, where do you recommend a citizen take a loose animal?
So any of our neighboring areas, why not? Like SPCA and folks like that. I do know that there's several rescues in the areas as well. That's something maybe our animal control can help publish areas with contact information if you've got an animal that. Dog or cat that's astray or is out loose, and you don't want to keep it, because if you keep it, you take control of it.
Right.
And I get that. So if you want to, do that, then and we're full, then maybe we can have a published list of here's where we would recommend.
Another part of that recommendation that I would also include: follow the City of Pearland Animal Shelter's social media, because they do social posts for a lot of the animals that they find out in the community that have had a home and need to find their way home. That helps turn capacity down as well, or being close to capacity.
Right.
And then share all the posts about adoption opportunities. Help find homes for pets that are in there, because they work really, really hard to make sure that they don't get over capacity, because that just stresses the entire system.
Right.
Okay, so the next one, let's see.
Turnover rate.
Oh yeah, the animal control officers seem to have a high turnover. Could you institute a contract type system whereby they sign a contract to remain with the department for 2 years in exchange for training investment that is being made in them?
I think it's a great question. Our turnover rate is high for a number of reasons. I think number one, it's a very difficult position to be in.
Yep.
Everyone is an expert in the community on animal control, and everyone in the community, basically, when they hit the streets, is telling them how to do their job. So very, very difficult position to be in. We have been raising the questions on pay. We have been raising the questions on where are we versus the market. What do we want to do to attract? We naturally have to train them.
Yep.
I don't think a 2-year contract locking somebody in would even go over. I think we would not fill positions if we had that. I love the spirit of that. Maybe you do a contract if you have sign-on bonuses and you can sign in. I know a lot of police departments do that for officers. They may give them a $10,000 or a $15,000 sign bonus to come in, and they have to be, with the department for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever they negotiate. There may be something that you could do there to maybe help with the turnover rate. But those two factors, very tough, very difficult position, and then number two, we have to address pay.
Yep.
Which is all taxpayer-driven issues.
Yeah,
right?
Typically we're a people-based organization. Typically everything comes back to people cost money, right?
But
from a salary and benefit perspective.
But I will say we've gone through some leadership change there.
Yeah.
And so far since we've had that leadership change, my phone and my email has not gone off as much about animal control and problems with animal control. More questions like this, not necessarily problems within animal control.
Well, and I will say too, I fundamentally believe that the professional staff that work in government, generally speaking, you know, they have a servant's heart. They're cut from a different cloth because I see it every day in all the work that we do. The animal control officers are even, you know, to me, a step past that, because not only do they have the servant's heart, but they're working in very, very difficult situations, and you know, in dangerous situations sometimes with the animals that they're dealing with, and I mean the things that they have to deal with are heartbreaking in a lot of situations, and so.
So in that situation, we are finding it better to bring people who have no experience in and train them as opposed to, you know, a potential bad experience somewhere else, you know, coming in.
Okay, staying on the animal control route, why can't the Pearland ACOs, animal control officers, trap stray cats? This is a common practice in other shelters.
Yeah, so we do.
Right.
I do know when we know that they're out there, we can and do
you
do
can
traps.
call
You
them
can call
and request a trap.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, this is something we will follow up with the manager over there. But there are a finite number of traps and a finite number of resources. So I think part of it comes down to what's available at the time and how long it takes.
And so this is one we'll follow up offline. We'll get the subject matter expert to weigh in on that. But I do know we do traps. We have talked about trap, neuter, and release. As a topic. We were actually
just on Monday. It came
on
up
Monday
here
night. We had some brief discussion. It was part of our brief budget discussion, but we're actually looking at how we can get a third party involved in that to help with that. Again, saving resources for our community. But more to come on directly to the person who asked this question.
Okay, so the next one says, why doesn't the shelter have a veterinarian to perform spay neutering, which is required to combat overpopulation? There has been an open position posted for over 1 year.
Yeah, and just because there's an open position for a year, we actually have a contract with a local vet that performs those services. So we have it as a contract basis right now. And what you're seeing online is we've been looking for somebody to bring in that would be an employee of the city.
And that was a conversation we had, I believe it was last budget cycle, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Because we have been outsourcing it, and every year they weigh what is the cost to outsource versus what's the need, and would it be more cost effective to have an employee?
That's correct.
But that is a highly specialized position and in a unique place because it's a veterinarian for a municipality. So potentially a challenging one to fill. There was a follow-up to that in the comment.
It's more of a statement. We'll just say it. Agree the amount dumped unwanted pets in Pearland is ridiculous. That is a public safety issue as well. There should be low-cost vet care available at the shelter. And so again, that's one of the things that we have wanted, if we can get that vet on staff. But for spay, neutering, and other types of issues, we actually have a contract vet on call.
Got it.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I know the vet, and they lose money on that.
They do it as a public service.
They just do it as a public service. There is a contract there, but it's not a moneymaker for his service.
All right, moving on to sidewalks. The next one says, the sidewalks being replaced in South Glen. I asked the contractor why there are no expansion joints. They said Pearland code only calls for every 15 feet, but the sections are 90 feet in length. So why no expansion joints?
So I'm not a subject matter expert, number one. Number two, I don't know that I would rely on the contractor's comment there. So let us get with our internal staff and what our specs are, and we will respond to this one directly on the feed.
And it would be helpful. Well, we have the neighborhood. I was going to suggest that we look specifically within the neighborhood.
I think we'll know, because if we've got sidewalk work going on in South Glen currently, then we'll know exactly what they're talking about and where they are.
Okay, the next one, when can the city build a sidewalk from Magnolia to Barry Miller Junior High so kids can walk to school without walking in the ditch or edge of the road such a short distance?
Okay, so that's another one. We'll just, as far as the timing is concerned, I need to look and see. This was part of our 2023 bond program.
Yes.
And so we've been dealing with a lot right now. We've been dealing with a lot of repair work. And then I know that there is some contract work to do the gaps, and
Yep.
the gap analysis has already been done. So let us circle back on this from a timing standpoint, because I know we're doing our sidewalks in zones
Yep.
around our city. We work in a particular zone, we do a lot of work there, then we move to the next zone.
Yep.
I would just need to look at we do have a sidewalk
A map.
map
Yep.
and
That's
not
what I was gonna
database, dashboard
Yep.
on
Interactive
the
map. Yep.
interactive map. We can also
Yeah,
send a
so-
link to that. But
So
let
if
me
you go to maps.pearlandtx.gov. That we have an interactive map there that has a
I think it'd be
sidewalk
better
plan.
on this one. We can
We'll
get
follow up,
get
yeah.
Jasmine and others to send an actual link to that.
But there
then-
is, to your point, that
Yeah.
one of the line items in the transportation bond package FY23
Yeah.
was $15.5 million, I believe, for repair and gaps and replacement of sidewalks to try to shore up a lot of those things around the community.
And we told people it wouldn't be overnight. It would take
Yeah.
3 or 4 years
Yeah.
to work through this. But specifically that area, let us take a look at the sidewalks folks within Public Works, and we can get a better answer for that.
Okay, so the next one, this is on Norfolk Drive. This hole at the entrance of South Glen is getting worse. City has no idea what is going on. The Connect to Pearland app says no response, so they submitted it through our app. Water is running from underground. Who can help us? This is definitely one where I think we need.
Yeah, we'll have to
somebody
get
to investigate.
specific. Even if I put my glasses on, I don't think I can
Ye-
really see what's happening
Yeah.
with that picture. But great information, John. Thank you for sending that over. Let us get a specific request on that into Public Works, and Josh, we need. This is where the Connect to app is saying no response.
Yeah,
So-
I'm going to look up that ticket specifically and Connect to Pearland.
Yeah, and I want to. This is one where I want to get a vet involved to
That's what I was gonna
understand the
suggest,
customer
yeah.
service
Yep.
aspect around that. We do have a new position on where it's our
Chief Customer Experience
Chief
Officer.
Customer Experience Officer, and we want to make sure that these types of customer services and the response to this are better than what I'm seeing here. But nevertheless, John, let us follow up with that with directly on that particular area and find out what's happening.
All
But
right,
thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Yes, thank you. When will you bring back red light runners cameras?
Well, the legislature has passed a law several years back that outlawed them.
Yep.
So we're not. Secondly, I had issues with the red light cameras specifically because there was no due process. So, for example, if you let somebody borrow your vehicle and they ran a red light, they didn't get the ticket, you did.
That's a terrible prank to play on a friend. But,
And so that's not due process.
Right.
And so there was and the law that came in to outlaw them was all around due process.
Yeah.
It was all around due process. Now we have set up several areas in town where we've run more officers to write more tickets.
Yep.
And
Areas again driven by DDAX where we know.
yeah, driven by our data, and to try to get more enforcement. And right now, I will tell you, I'm just going to say this the only way I know how to say it. Get off of this
Yeah.
while
yeah.
you're driving.
Yep.
I will tell you, I have seen people run red lights, and when you see them, they're on their phone. The distracted driving is out of control. It
Yep.
is. I was at Dixie Farm Road and Broadway about 2 weeks ago to turn left. We turned green, so it turns red. There's always about a 3 or 5 second delay.
Yeah.
Turned green, here comes a truck. Fortunately, I hadn't left. I've gotten a habit where I look both ways before I ever go.
That's the other
we
thing I was gonna
shouldn't. We
suggest.
shouldn't necessarily have to do that.
No, but you should certainly keep your head on a swivel
But
at all
people
times.
people are on their devices, and it is absolutely out of control. I think if we're talking about legislatively, and you're found to be guilty of an accident and you were distracted because of this, it needs to have the same almost the same penalties as drunk driving.
Yeah.
There needs to be some real teeth in it to curb the reason for doing it.
Sure.
And I know that's a little harsh and getting out there, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody weaving and they're not drunk.
Yep.
They are
just
literally texting and driving, or they're on Facebook, or
Sure.
there's something as
Yep.
you drive by, and it concerns you when you see it.
But I
So,
think that's a good point.
Yeah.
So to the mayor's point, nothing that can be done at the local level for the red light cameras, but stay aware and hopefully trust the cops that they're doing their jobs up there. Next one is when is Veterans Drive between Magnolia and Bailey going to be fixed for real? Patching just is not working because after a week it needs to again. It is being used more and more. Please, before tires are ruined or on that curve,
Yeah.
the road causes wrecks.
So same
avoid
same
those.
answer that we give every month.
Yep.
We're going to be consistent. This section of veterans is in our package with Brazoria County. Your road and bridge dollars that go to the county coming back into our community. We do this on an annual basis. This section of veterans is slated in our projects with Brazoria County this summer. We have said that now for multiple months, and
This is probably number 3 or number 4. Yeah.
maybe more. But it's the same thing. We understand it, we get it, that
Yep.
it's coming. And again, from the resources that we have, and the way that cooperative works is we buy the material and the county does the work.
Yep.
So
And we buy the material at their cost.
I can't remember all the roads. That's also on the dashboard.
Yeah.
But
That's
this-
what I was going to suggest. You
yeah.
can see what's coming up in the near future.
Yeah.
And Veterans is slated on there in the
And,
next
and
few
maybe
months.
we can get Jasmine to send that link on
Yeah.
this one specifically, and they can have fun going through the link.
Okay, this next one, bear with me, this is a long question.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read the whole thing out verbatim. Hello, Mayor Cole. My specific questions have to do with buildings under the City of Pearland control, like City Hall, the Public Safety Building, Animal Services, and the Rec Center, just to name a few examples. Does the City of Pearland have a set on master specifications used for new building construction or project renovations? To be more specific, do specifications for door hardware and the use of access control exist, or are they written project specific? In addition, under your term as a city council member and mayor, has the City of Pearland ever filed an errors and emissions claim against an architectural or engineering firm for design work that failed to meet minimum requirements spelled out in the I codes or the city ordinances?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to answer this question that every single project that we have going through, whether it's a building or a road or a detention area or drainage, whatever the capital improvement is, those projects have very specific specifications going out. Do we have a set of master specifications just sitting in City Hall that if we're going to go build a building, this is what it's going to be?
Sure.
The answer is no, because every building is different.
Right.
The specifications for a firehouse are going to be different than a city
Or
hall,
street service center, yeah,
or
right.
a office building for public works is going to have different specifications
Sure.
than the police station.
Yep.
And so all of those are going to be different. So it's going to be very specific to that building. As far as hardware is concerned, I'm not sure if this is talking about specific hardware for like disabled folks and people in wheelchairs and those types of things. Because of COVID, I think almost all of our buildings, we may have a few
touch-ups,
exceptions
yeah.
where we have those where you can no touch, you can put your hand up and they'll open. I don't know that there's a specific specification for those, but we do, and I do know we had an issue over at the rec center and natatorium with some doors that were locking
Yep.
and that didn't need to be. And I know we've been doing a deep dive into that specific instance to make sure that we don't have a problem there.
Well, and just to jump in real quick on the setup of specifications, just like anybody building in Pearland, we have to follow our own ordinances,
Right.
Our own fire code, and so our project managers, when they build a new building, they're working with community development and the
Right.
fire marshal's office and urban forestry to make sure that we're following our own protocols because. Even though we're the ones getting the permits from people we work with, we want to lead by example because those ordinances are there for a reason. You know,
Yeah.
we
I'm a
build
big
communities
believer
that
that
way.
we need to follow our own codes and ordinances and rules and regulations. And so now to the second half of that question, since my time on city council as well as being mayor, have we ever filed an errors and omissions claim against an architectural and engineering firm for design work that failed to meet minimum requirements? I can't think of a time that we actually filed on it. I do know we have had instances where we've had problems either with an engineering design or an architectural design. I can think of two very specific cases on engineering. We had one, in fact, just a couple of years ago where we had some problems on a drainage component of McCard Road. And so getting that fixed and rectified was a number. And the engineering firm, wrote a check for that as opposed to, having their E&O, an E&O claim or their insurance, an insurance claim against them. We had another one, part of a bond program in the 2001 bond program. We had a project, I'm trying to remember the exact project, but we had a quality control in the plans itself. So it goes back to what he's talking about here. That was wrong, and we ended up in a settlement issue with that engineering firm. We made the case, and we may have actually filed on that one. We may have actually, and then got in it and then settled. It's been a couple of days on that one. On that one, but yes, we if we see something that's wrong, and it goes back to the design. Then we're gonna be on the design team for for rectifying the situation. Those are hard conversations. They're business conversations. They're not personal.
Right.
And that's what we do. We go through that. So from time to time there might be a quantity that's missed. We had one of those on the Bailey Road and Bridge. And in that particular one, spreadsheet with thousands of cells in it. There was a cell that had a bad number in it. Again, it's quality control.
Sure.
It's on the engineer to get it right. And my question when that came to light, it was early on in this project. When it came to light, I asked the question, did you go back and had the number been correct? Would it have changed the ranking of the contractors?
Right.
Because that was my concern. Was somebody got
it through the
somebody got the job and maybe wouldn't have,
Yeah.
and the answer was no. Our construction, who's doing that project now, would have still been the recommended bidder. Would still been the recommended bidder had the quantity been correct. But they happen. In that particular one, engineer didn't. It was not an E&O necessarily.
Sure.
That one, and it was still coming within project limits. But
Right.
But it's
still within the total budget.
But it's real important that we go through these very carefully, thoughtfully. And get it as we need to get it right 100% of the time, but we're also human.
Right.
And so when you do, you have those tough conversations. We've had them in the public. And I've even said to that engineering firm, I'm not, giving you another shot.
Right. Yeah, it's on record. You can go back and watch that video.
You
too.
can. It was pretty
Not that
direct.
long ago. Yeah.
It was pretty direct.
And I mean, to your point, we do a lot of these different things in a wide variety of buildings, and everything from general office buildings to a 130-year-old train depot to a brand new fire station. And every one of them we take extremely seriously, and try to minimize the mistakes and get the most bang for our buck out of it. I mean, this train depot is a great example. The design, the original design estimates for having a historical preservation architect just weren't realistic in the whole scope of work, and so we went back to the drawing board and said, what do we think we could do short of that, and save hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's every situation is different, and we try to take a piece at a time, and they're all public. I mean, we're transparent about all.
So the next two, let's
Yeah,
read both
so
of
we're gonna
these
group these
questions
together.
together. Yeah.
Yep. So next question 16 is, with more and more cyclists on the road, when will the city do a better job creating and maintaining bike lanes? And then the next question is, Mayor Cole, would the city of Pearland consider exploring the opportunity to become recognized as a bicycle-friendly community through the League of American Bicyclists? Cyclists are on Pearland roads every day, mornings, evenings, and weekends, representing clubs like Major Taylor Houston, Justice League Cycling, Pearland Bicycles, and many other from neighboring cities. Cycling is already a well-established part of our community. This program could help us support it more intentionally, ensuring safety and access for everyone using our roads. Becoming a bicycle-friendly community isn't just a title, it's a chance to evaluate how we approach transportation, recreation, and local economic growth. Participating cities often benefit from healthier residents, reduced traffic stress, and increased business from visiting cyclists and events. Some residents may have concerns about cyclists on the road, but this program isn't about giving special treatment. It's about making our streets safer and more efficient for drivers, riders, and pedestrians alike. Next application deadline is due June 25th, 2025. Could the city of Pearland?
Yeah, so I'll take the second one first.
Yeah.
I would love to do a deep dive into this to see
Yep.
what all the requirements are.
I was thinking we take it to parks.
Yeah, when you just say let's go do that, we need to we need to know what that looks like. We need to know what
Yeah.
our specific requirements are as the city. But to that end, the first question I would refer to the second question, because apparently we are doing a lot for cyclists in our community. When we get one that said a better job creating and maintaining, the only bike lanes that I really know about are on Dixie Farm Road and on 518.
Yep.
518 is a TxDOT roadway, so all maintenance and everything of that are the state in maintaining that. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I can't tell you the last time I saw an actual bicycle in the bike lane.
Yep.
I just can't. It's been a while.
Well, and I'll tell you too. From
Yeah.
I mean, question 2 to question 1. I mean,
And
so-
I'm not. And I don't want the poster. I don't want to say that it never happens.
Sure,
I'm trying to put it in context. I can't remember the last time I saw someone riding a bike in the
Yeah.
bike lane.
Well, and I think to that point, one of the reasons you may not see it that much, our parks department has a trail system that runs throughout the community, and a lot of our sidewalks and trails are 10-foot
Right.
shared use trails
Right.
designed for, or shared use sidewalks, whatever you want to call them, but they're designed to create connectivity to keep pedestrian traffic off of the roadways, and then allow people the
Yeah.
space to be able to do
So, so Broadway. I'm specifically talking about Broadway from 35 East.
that. Right.
Has a small bike lane, there. As Broadway or 518 is widened on the other side of the
From
railroad
Queen to
tracks,
288, yeah.
all the way back to 288, going to 6 lanes with a median. There's not going to be a dedicated specific bike lane in the roadway.
Yep.
In the roadway, TxDOT, along with our own officials here locally, don't believe that's the safest place to go. And again, some cyclists may not like this answer, but we will have a 10-foot shared use path.
Yep.
So bicycles can be there along with anybody that might be jogging or walking.
Yep.
And so again, a lot of cyclists may not like that, but the cyclist clubs where you see a pack of cyclists, going down the roadway, typically want to avoid a road like Broadway or 518
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to be more on other types of roadways, county
Yep.
roadways. They're going to want to be on roads that are less congested.
Yeah.
I do see them a lot on Pearland Parkway, for
Yeah,
example.
I see them a lot in the ETJ between
Yeah.
Dixie Farm.
And so we're doing more to promote more bike and,
Yep.
and pedestrian traffic in our trail systems on shared use paths as
Yep.
opposed to in the roadway.
Yep.
We just think from a danger standpoint, being in the roadway, cyclists and motorists just don't mix real well.
But you will, one of the biggest trail systems, the Clear Creek Trail System,
Right.
when it's complete, you'll be able to traverse east to west, west to east.
Correct.
The entire length of Pearland.
Like
and then,
25 miles of trail.
Yeah, it's a lot of trails. And a lot of that's already in place. It's
But
just
to the other, we need to turn that over to our Parks Department and our City
Yeah.
Manager's office, and let's see what that looks like to be a bicycle-friendly community.
Because parks,
Yeah.
I mean, their mission is to create
Right.
experiences that change lives positively through healthy activities. I didn't get that word for word, but I
Right.
mean, that's essentially what their mission is.
Well, let's
And
hit
so-
these. Let's hit these
Yep.
last two, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we'll wrap
We
them
got
up.
a couple,
Yeah.
just a few online, but all right. So this next one, are you doing anything to combat the rise in home appraisal rates for Pearland, Brazoria County? With HOA fees and other taxes, the cost to own a home in Brazoria County is becoming unbelievable. Some people report increases of $50,000 to $100,000. And this is on top of of higher appraisal rates year after year. Higher market values count towards comps in the area, so more than just individual households are affected by these outrageous numbers. Yes, we can protest, but we should not have to. The system should produce a fair and accurate value, and when the mass data and algorithms don't reflect the area's home's real condition or the current market, Brazoria County Appraisal District should hold the line or cut back. Many of us concerned Pearland and Brazoria County citizens have set communications similar to this one to the Brazoria County Appraisal District to see if they will ever hold the line or even cut back. Please let us know what you may be doing as a representative of the collective people of the city to challenge these outrageous appraisal rate decisions.
Yeah, so I love this question because it also goes back to the role and responsibility and who's in charge.
Sure.
But I also understand the poster is asking specifically about me as a representative of people in Pearland.
Sure.
What conversations I'm having to combat this. So number one, the role and responsibility of this is at the legislature.
Yep.
Period, bar none. That is where it is. Now, I'm not passing the buck. I'm trying to set where the responsibility is. It's at the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, number two, your appraisal districts like Brazoria County Appraisal District, Harris County Appraisal District, Fort Bend Appraisal District. This particular poster is in Brazoria County. So BCAD, Brazoria County Appraisal District. They are not an agency of the county.
Right.
They are an agency of the Texas Comptroller's Office.
Yep.
So a state agency. They are an arm, if you will,
Yeah.
of the Comptroller's Office. The Comptroller governs how these appraisal districts work.
And the appraisal districts, I mean, they just happen to be framed around the same shape of a county, so they get.
Right. I mean,
Brazoria County-
they are that way. So
Right,
there's
right.
there's likability or similarities or whatever within
Right.
the county.
But they're
I
not
get
the
that.
county.
But they are not the county.
Yeah.
Third, they are operated per state law.
Right.
State law dictates how they do their work, how often they have to do the appraisals. It dictates where they have to be at market value, at 100%. It even dictates how they get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so state law dictates what happens in order to get there. So, for example, a couple of years back, we've had these big push up in values because the Texas Comptroller's Office did a look at Brazoria County, specifically around school finance. So much dollars are coming in from the state into school finance, right? That they wanted to make sure that the school districts were at a certain level, and they needed to be, and 6 out of the 7 school districts in Brazoria County failed the test. And again, you may not like the values that they were putting, but
Sure.
the Comptroller's Office did it, and 6 out of the 7, including Pearland ISD, were below 75% of value instead of 100%. They were
Wow.
below 75%. So there was this mass, and here's what, if they didn't get the values up, the state was not going to fund our local schools.
Yeah, that's
So again, that's not
Back at the state
me,
level,
that's not
right.
your superintendent, that's not your school boards. That is your state of Texas dictating
Yeah.
how that went.
Yeah.
Now, what are we doing about it? Again, you shouldn't have to appraise or excuse me,
protest.
you shouldn't have to protest.
Right.
I would tell anybody out there, you get your, and you don't think it's right, protest.
Yep.
If you don't think it's right, call some of the companies that will go and do this on your behalf. Call a realtor that you know to look at actual comparable values of people who have sold properties and do some of that work. So you, number one, know what you're getting into, but go and do it. Now, I'm going to take 2 minutes and I'm going to explain to you what I think we should do as the state of Texas. I'm about to give you Kevin Cole's version of what we should do, because here's part of the problem. You have somebody from out of state, or you have some corporation that's coming in and buying up homes for rental.
Sure.
Okay? And again, that's the American dream. They can go, and that's their business model. They can go and do that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If they buy a 2,000 square foot house that's built in the 70s and it was completely updated, like it's brand new, and somebody comes in and buys, and let's say that they went above value.
Yeah.
And paid for it.
Right.
Well, 4 houses down is the same house, built at the same time, but it's not updated.
Yeah.
Guess what the appraisal district does?
Right.
They assign the same value that was here to here.
Right.
That's not fair.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's the problem at the appraisal district, because state law allows what I just explained.
Yeah.
And in fact, dictates it. That's how you have to do it. That's not fair to this homeowner.
Sure.
This guy buy it, I mean, that's the rate. So what I would say, and for ease of numbers, let's just say the house is on the market and you pay $100,000 for it. I know that's a joke, but I mean, it's $100,000 for the house. Then it goes on the tax rolls at $100,000. So you show here's my closing statement, it goes on at $100,000. And then it increases based on inflation.
Right.
So if you have a 2%, 3%, 4% inflation
price
rate,
index,
then your appraisal will go up at 2 or 3 or 4%.
Makes sense.
If it goes down, it goes down. Okay.
Also
if
makes
you've
sense.
had high inflation, 8%, it's going to go up 8%.
Yep.
But it's going to go at CPI.
Yep.
Period. That eliminates. It's predictable.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, and it completely eliminates the need to protest.
Well, and theoretically, that matches, the shift in wages, right? Because those kind of migrate with inflation. Right. It gives you some protection in a downturn,
right?
Right. I mean that's
right.
I could see.
So it would be at CPI.
Yep.
And let's say you had that home for 15 years, or if you have it for 40, that's fine. But let's say you have it for 15 years, you can do that math, whatever that is. Yeah. Let's say let's say it's on the tax rolls at 175 or 180, and it's 15 years later, and I sell it for 250.
Goes up to 250.
It goes up to 250
right. And then the process
on that buyer.
Right. Right.
So if you're the home over here and you haven't updated,
right.
You're still at CPI.
Yep.
Okay, you're not impacted. If you not update your home, but if you add on, that's going to cause a change in your value. If you add a pool, you're adding capital to your home, that changes things. So that would be a more fair and equitable way to stop this influence from outside people coming in and driving appraisals up. Okay, and driving the appraisals up.
And then eliminate the need for protest.
Correct. And so right now, we collectively, with Brazoria County Appraisal District and the other counties, we pay a portion of their budget. That's how they get it. They get it from all the taxing entities, and you pay a portion for all the services that they provide. So we at the city pay about $1 million a year. I need to go get the exact number, but it's plus or minus $1 million a year between the 3 appraisal districts, the bulk of which obviously are going to Brazoria County Appraisal District. And so it's a pro rata share of their budget.
Yep.
And so just imagine if you eliminated the need for appraisals,
sure.
or down to a very small minimum, and that is, like I put a pool in 2017. In 2018, knock on the door, it was the appraisal district.
Ah, yeah.
Because they knew the permit was there. Yep,
sure.
It's here, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? I got hit the next year.
Yep.
Here was my pool added to
Yep.
the
Makes sense.
to my appraisal. And so that would eliminate the need for this. It would help be predictable. So if you know if inflation is at 2%, then you know your appraisal is
Yeah.
going to go. Now, tax rates are still based on that.
Right.
They're still based on that. And we push and pull. We look at every expenditure
Sure.
often. We even had that discussion Monday night where
Yep.
we're looking at various things and
different
how can we
scenarios.
eliminate this, or how can we move this to someone else? How can we, do things differently? We look at things that have been around, and we've been doing things the same way for X amount of years. We challenge the status quo. When we have a person under employment at the city leave, we look at that and go, do we need to replace it
At the individual position level.
at the individual position level?
Which is really impressive. I mean, because it's going up all the way through HR to say,
Yeah.
help us make sense of this.
Right.
And I mean,
Can
it's
that
all
be
sorts of-
absorbed with
Yeah.
the rest of the department?
Yep.
Can we have those discussions ongoing every day, every week,
Yep.
within City Hall?
Yeah, to eke the most value out of, and to be the best stewards we can of the funds that are trusted to us. We certainly appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thanks for that
Great
explanation.
question.
Yeah. Really good
And
question.
it's a philosophical question, but it's a great question and very pertinent
Yep.
with what we
Absolutely.
do.
Okay, so the last one we have from the ones that were submitted ahead of time. So the businesses on 518 between Byron and Old Alvin, the trees that are behind their place of business and back up to the yards in Regency Park, who is responsible for cutting and keeping them trimmed? We have to cut the limbs on our side and dispose of them every year with no assistance from the businesses. This is minor, but I would like to know the answer is, I'm tired of cutting.
Yeah, it's a great question. At the end of the day, it's a civil matter.
Right.
However, internally here, make a note. Let's call code enforcement.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest.
And if it's trees hanging over into your yard, you have a right to cut them, which you've done, and you have that right. But you're bearing cost, you're bearing time, you're bearing effort in order to do that, and the business owners are not taking care of their property. So let's get code enforcement involved. Take a look at it. If nothing else, code enforcement may knock on a couple of doors there,
Yeah.
and say, hey, you got neighbors here next door. You need help trimming your trees and bear that cost.
And their goal is obviously compliance, right?
Right.
And it might be, I don't want to make assumptions one way or the other, but
Right.
The code enforcement is the appropriate avenue to help investigate those types of things. So
Yeah.
so we'll make sure.
So let's see if we can do some rapid fire and go through.
Yeah,
maybe
let's see,
things that we have.
All right,
Yeah.
so give me 1 second. The first comment got cut off. I can't pull it up because of what's passed, but I can read it out.
Okay.
McCart is currently choked down to one lane traveling east just after cresting the bridge. Hundreds of Pearland residents and others are put at risk with
Okay.
construction, especially, and then you can see the rest here. Flag should be placed when needed, instead making it unsafe and inconvenient for travels night and day.
Okay, so the questions about McCard Road being shut down to one lane.
Yeah.
So how long is it going to be shut down?
I don't know. Let's take a look at that with staff tomorrow and respond back to this in the morning.
Okay.
Let us get a good answer for you on
Yeah.
that. I don't want to shoot from the hip.
Yeah, so we'll ask, that should be Streets, about that one, or potentially the contractor. We would like you to respond to the questions many did 3 days ago. For those who are worried and concerned for the huge amount of pets, dogs mostly dumped.
Yeah.
in-
So
we've
we've
covered
responded to that in this call. They're talking about the animal control stuff. And Rebecca, real quick on that, we take questions ahead of time to then talk about here.
Yep.
So we had those teed up so we can go right into those questions and answer them.
And then she asks, how can we get the tollway less expensive? It's crazy we have to pay for such one extension only. 610 frontage road is $750. So it's Brazoria County Toll Road Authority and Harris County Toll Road.
So there's two.
Yep.
So at the Clear Creek Bridge, everything north of that is Harris County.
Harris County. Hectra.
Setting Hectra and setting those. Well, it's actually TxDOT. TxDOT has purchased that back from the original owner of that. South of that is Brazoria County. Brazoria County has not changed their toll pricing since day one. and then everything north of that now is owned by TxDOT. And so we at the city don't control those tolls, but I do know TxDOT now has no profit motive in there, so they are looking at how they can adjust tolls moving north, either less increases, and unfortunately, the way the contract was written by the company that built it and the built-in toll, they got to increase their tolls based on CPI. So what happened coming out of COVID
Right.
is you had
Everything
this large
spiked up,
ramp
yeah.
up. So right now CPI or inflation is fortunately, thankfully, is around 2%.
Yep.
So we've seen that come back down in a breathable situation, but it's so high now, and so that's where we are. So I don't have control. The city doesn't have control. We've had conversations in doing, what can we do to make things better.
In probably a less popular response, but you can also take the frontage road to get from Beltway to 288. It takes a little bit longer, but you can bypass that the paid lanes that way.
I agree. Great questions by Lisa Woods. Thank you,
Yep.
Lisa, for those questions.
So Eric says, will East Pearland, other side of Clear Creek, ever get the option to attend Pearland ISD schools? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Oh, so they're talking about probably the Pasadena.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Pasadena. So let me set the stage. Green Tea, which is in Harris County on the other side of Clear Creek, is
It's
zoned
Pearland ISD,
for
right.
Pearland ISD.
Yeah.
That unfortunately went to a massive lawsuit all the way back in the 80s. I'm the old guy, I've been around here a long time, so I know the history on this. So it actually went to a lawsuit. And so if you are west of Green Tea, that is Pasadena ISD. If you are east of Green Tea, that is Clear Creek ISD. So I don't want to know which one or the other, but that is, the school districts have to reapportion and do that. That's not a city function. It's a function of the two school districts to sit down. But like on the west side, you have an elementary school in Pasadena ISD
Yep.
and an intermediate school in Pasadena ISD. So I think the chances of those being moved into Pearland ISD is probably not ever going to happen.
Sure.
Because you have assets
Schools there, right.
and schools there.
Just like west of 288.
Right. The other side, it would have to be, again, Clear Creek had the backside of Green Tea for years, and it was Clear Creek ISD that ultimately gave it up. That would need to be a petition and working with people in
But
that
it'd be through
section.
the school districts.
But it would be
not
through
through
the school districts reapportioning those, not the city.
Yep.
But
Great question, though.
Yeah, but it's a great question. It
And
just goes to
Pearland
the
is somewhat unique, and I mean, not that many cities sit across as many school districts as we
yeah,
do.
it's a great question. It's a great exercise in how many jurisdictions that we
Yep.
have to deal with.
Yep.
But it's a great question.
And then the last one we have on here so far: streets and drainage, streets and street drains in South Glen subdivision are buckled and crumbling. Something needs to be done.
Yeah. So again, that's just part of our ongoing. We need to take a look at that specifically.
Yep.
And I'm quite
We'll
sure
take
there's.
that to our streets
I'm
team.
sure there's probably some things in our streets and drainage. And again, I'll just say it. Getting to all of these is time consuming to get there, and then getting them fixed is time consuming.
And
We have go back to our, how many road miles do we have in the city?
just right at 1,000.
It's right at 1,000 road miles in our city, and so getting to that and then getting them repaired.
Yep.
So we actually put those through our pavement condition index.
That's what I was going to suggest.
And then we take a look at those, and the worst streets get worked on,
Yep.
not the best. We work from the worst to the best.
Yep.
And so our dashboard on that would actually know the PCI on your street.
So Charles, we'll submit
yeah.
that, give you a
Yeah.
link to the dashboard that it has the PCI as well as where all the projects are. And again, this comes down to, the amount of resources and then the diversification of those resources. What's, asphalt that we can have Brazoria County do,
Right.
or asphalt that we can have a contractor do,
Right.
or a complete curb and gutter.
So one of the things the council, and I'll just say it, the council years ago about 10 years ago plus, needed to be putting about $4.5 million
Based
into
on the
that,
pavement condition.
based on that
yeah.
PCI at the time to keep it at that and hopefully improve it. And they didn't fund that.
Right.
And so now here we are, and we really need to be at $6 million. And so
A year.
a
just
year,
in maintenance.
a year, not one time,
Yeah.
a year
Yeah.
to do the proper maintenance. And so the council has been instructing our city manager to increase that line item $500,000 a year to get more going in that direction.
So currently we have $1.5 million
Right.
annually in that account. The early budget input we had on Monday.
Right.
Most of the scenarios included adding $500,000
Right.
next year, and then another $500,000 the year after that, and then so forth and so on
Right.
until we get to that $6
Right.
million.
Right.
But like we talked about earlier, it all comes down to
Right.
the capacity, the appetite for budget,
Right.
and the impact that that has on tax rates.
Right.
Right.
That's correct.
There's a balancing act.
There is a balancing act. And so we know the need. We also know the realities of dollars.
You're right.
And so we work with those. And one of the things that we're going to do, we'll tell the citizens here, we talked about this earlier today, future talk of the town, is we want to come and talk about our budget, talk about how we do our budgeting and how we set this up.
And that's
And-
a conversation that everybody, especially that lives in the city of Pearland, but anybody who lives in the city anywhere should pay attention to and listen to,
Right.
because it is a powerfully complex and unbelievably important conversation.
Yep. So we'll be coming to you in June. What's the date in June? Excuse me, in May. Golly, I just want to skip May altogether.
I believe
May
it's
the
the
28th.
28th,
May
yeah.
the 28th. So we'll be doing that one. I would assume in the morning. We need to look at make sure that's on the schedule. But
Yes.
we've been alternating between 9 a.m. and 6 o'clock p.m.
And we want your feedback too,
yeah.
people that are out there. If there's another time that you think makes sense, this is a platform that we've been trying to evolve and optimize over
Right.
time. But the idea is that we're here for you and to listen and to answer your questions in a
Right.
live format. To help build the education and trust that you all have with us.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll say this, and we'll sign off. But one, this is a format where we can come directly to you, take questions ahead of time, bring those, and then also come to you with some questions asked and answered right here.
Yep.
I think it's real important that we engage directly with our constituents, with our customers. We treat you as a customer. We think of it in terms of customer service, and we want to be able to do that. As I said up front, we may not know an answer, but we're going to get you an answer.
Absolutely.
And because it's important that we do that.
Yep.
I don't want to tell you something and that not be 100% accurate. We want to be accurate with what we tell you. So I thank you for the opportunity to come and do that. I thank you for the opportunity to have these discussions. It's a pleasure, it's a privilege, and it's an honor to be the mayor of this city.
Yeah, we're thankful that you're willing to have these conversations.
In our city, it's the third largest city population-wise in the metro Houston
Yep.
area, Houston, Pasadena, then Pearland. And I will tell you, we have a platform, we have some influence in the region because of that, and I don't take that for granted.
Sure.
When I go to an HGAC meeting or I go to the Transportation Policy Council, I am taking 132 to 135,000 residents with me.
Yeah.
In our ETJ, it's 155,000 people. So we don't take that lightly.
No, yeah.
But that's the influence that we bring to the table, and it is a privilege and an honor to go and do that. When we go speak at the legislature, we're bringing you with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just me; it's us.
It's a community. Yeah.
And we look at our whole city, and we look at what's in the best interest of our city. So I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want
Yeah,
to thank
thank you all.
for listening in. As always, bring your questions and concerns to us, and we'll do our best to get those asked, answered, and turned around to you.
And completely random thought, but I'd also like to know if people out there think we need a theme song, because
Oh.
maybe we do, you know. I feel like that's the thing we could probably work on.
I see
Just-
staff shaking their head no, but we'll see.
That means it's
We'll
a good
see.
idea.
Didn't mean it was a good one. So anyway,
All right, well, we thank you all, and
Yeah.
thanks for the time tonight,
Yep.
and we'll see y'all again in May, I guess, yeah?
sounds good. May
All right.
28th.
See ya. Talk of the town.